Dr. Latifat is a GI doc, certified life coach, and the founder of the Money Coaching School for Badass Women Physicians. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out, because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. So I was sitting here with Dr. Latifat catching up over her last year of travels, and she was sharing with me that she just returned from Japan, and I wanted to just hit record and kind of continue to hear about her journey because it's so amazing. Everybody needs to hear it. So what were you saying that you traveled for the last year? Like, tell me more. Tell me more.
Yeah. In 2022, I was in Aruba for a talk. I went to go speak there. My husband went with me. And we found out that most people in Aruba speak multiple languages. And we just had a moment where it was a thought. And I think it was a thought that God just like planted as a seed. And the thought was, what would happen imagine if our kids could experience this immersion for 6 months? But at that time, I was an employed physician. I was a, W-2. And doctors, we don't do that kind of stuff.
Right.
We don't go to places for 6 months. So I was like, dreamland, let's back to life, right? And then, it's about a couple months later, like 3 months later, my husband was like, oh, that thing we talked about, I'm ready. And I'm like, what thing we talked about? Is like about potentially leaving and traveling for months. I was like, I thought we were joking. We can't even joke in this family. And, that became like the seed. And we just sat on it for a couple more months, prayed about it. And it was very clear in my mind. I felt the strong nudge that it was what I was supposed to do. Of course, it wasn't easy deciding because it's scary. It's something, people have like their dream bucket list. It was never like quit my job was not on. I was not burned out as a physician. I would be happy, forever in that. Being a doctor, I had the money school for physicians, so my life was good. I have a great community. There was nothing I was running away from. But I think that many times people think that we have to be running away from something to move. But other times you just need to be pulled towards something else. So we did in 2023. So about 6 months after this conversation, we ended up, I quit my job and we took our 3 kids. They were 5 to 10 at that time out of school, and we traveled around the world. We did 20 or 21 countries in a year and, came back last year. And at that point, the beautiful part about unplugging from life in many ways, I was still coaching my women from around, wherever I was in, Asia, Europe, Africa, like different continents. And I just kept on doing that part. But I was doing probably 10% of what I normally do in my life, which was huge for a physician. And it was the best decision. Like when I think on my like counting wise, one of the best 5 decisions that I've made in my entire life was to quit my job, travel the world. It changed us. It was hard because I've never unplugged. Like many people were working so much, we maybe take a week off. But what I found was that after it took 6 weeks for me to actually defrost, I had to get past all the thoughts in my head of like, you're lazy, you're disappointing people. How can you be so skilled and take out? But I knew that if I got through that mind drama, that I was going to get into a room that I'd never gotten through before. And that's exactly what happened. 6 weeks later, I was like, wow, this is what it feels to be defrosted and rest.
Yeah.
And it grew our roots in ways that we still benefit in front.
It's absolutely amazing. And you talk about being drawn, and we'll link to the podcast episode that I did with her before this, I guess. It must have been because we did not talk about this journey. So, and I wasn't interviewing you in Africa. So this is amazing. And go back and listen to it. But, a lot of the seeds that she's talking about were definitely planted back then. And, I want to dig into more aspects of what you just shared, but I just thought it was so important. We were having this conversation backstage to just record it and make sure that people really heard, about the magnificence that she's created in the past couple of years and probably long before that as well. I'm going to give a little bit of a more formal introduction to you, Dr. Latifat, so that people kind of know a little bit more about what you're talking about. Dr. Latifat is a GI doc certified life coach and the founder of the Money Coaching School for Badass Women Physicians. She's the voice behind the Money Fit MD podcast and the author of Done with Broke, an Amazon bestseller. Her mission to help women physicians achieve financial liberation, grow their net worth, and build rich, impactful lives without burning out. Amazing. You're showing so many people what's possible and really, walking the talk. So it's really incredible to see and to witness. And, I just had a yearning and a feeling that you needed to be on my podcast today. Like quite literally. I was like, okay, hi. I saw you pop up on my social media. How's it going? Let's
I'm glad I
chat.
popped up. I'm glad I did. It's good to
Exactly.
see you.
Exactly. So you talked about kind of this idea of a joke, right? Like, can I not even make jokes with my family? And one thing on the opposite side is I notice with a lot of women will make a joke, but it's not in the positive, right? So there's these words that come out of my clients' mouths that they say, but I didn't actually say that to him. I didn't actually say that out loud. And it's funny that you called it a joke because anything that we put out into the world is real, right? It's absolutely real. And so I tell them, if you're telling it to me right now, even if you didn't say this to him, maybe you were completely silent, kept your mouth shut, they can feel it, right? So the other person can feel our energy. And also the universe, of course, can tell like the direction that we're going with all the words that we speak out loud. And so I use these as moments as investigation. So I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's talk about that feeling that you have about your boss or whatever that might be. Like, we need to get to the bottom of this because, even though you didn't say it out loud, it's there. It's real. It's how you're feeling, and it's worth exploring. So, what do you think about that when I say that these
No.
thoughts and everything they don't become reality. They are real.
Absolutely. I mean, our words are powerful. And the part that I was telling my husband about the joke is because my husband is cool, calm, and collected. When it comes to him and I, people think more quiet. However, people don't understand that is like one of the forces that pushes me to do things. Like if I don't want to do it, I better not tell him. The moment it's out of my mouth, it's like, but you said you were gonna write a book. You said you were gonna write your second book. Like you said you wanted to go talk. You invited to come speak. You don't want to leave us, go do it. So that's why I mean, like, I cannot even be like an underachiever with you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And I love that because his goal is like when we stand before God, I don't ever want to be the reason why you did not become all that you were created to be. And I really, really appreciate that about our relationship. But I 100% agree with you. But also, I think we underestimate how much shows up on our face.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I'm like, they can tell, right? Yeah.
They can tell.
Yeah.
They can tell. My daughter, we're talking about kids earlier. My oldest one is 12. Sometimes I tell her exactly what she's thinking. She's like, how do you know? I'm like, child, I usually say, I'm your mother. But the truth is, it is showing up. So it affects everything
Mhm.
that we respond. Like it's not just about the words. It's about the attitude you're giving
Mhm.
someone. It's like there is a difference between a full stop and a comma. The words, the trend, like whether it goes up, flat,
Mhm.
or down at the end matters. And all of that is a reflection of the underlying thoughts that you have. So to think that our thoughts are not showing up in our words, even if it's not those direct words directly, is us just like, trying to be ignorant
Yeah.
of the truth that
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I can really feel your energy and your words behind your words, even since you returned from this journey. We talked about the journey itself, but then there's the journey after the journey. And I remember coming back from my spiritual journey to India and traveling, and I felt like a even bigger culture shock coming back to the United States after traveling through India and really being kind of like taken aback by some of the ways and the behavior and the life that I had set up prior to going. And I was like, wow, all of this is very unnecessary. And some of the struggles that I had created in my life prior to that journey became very clear. So I'm curious, for you, what has the aftermath been since you returned? And what are some of the changes perhaps that you've made in your life as a result?
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, that it was so transformative because there was a time together as a family doing nothing, literally. We would, the kids would homeschool for a couple of hours. We may spend hours at the beach, figure out what to eat. I would, go walking every day before they wake up. I would explore different cities and find coffee everywhere. I would pray without rushing, being able to meditate, read my Bible. All of that stuff was so enriching that I described the experience as deepening of our roots. Deepening of our roots. There's many people want to grow up. There are two layers, ways you can grow. You can grow up and you can grow deeper. So there's the part that's but above the surface and beneath the surface. And I truly felt like we grew a lot beneath the surface. Our roots got deeper. And when we came back, what we had decided before was we've always decided that we were different, that we were going to be different. We don't, as some of that teaches about money, people talk about the American dream. We don't believe in the traditional American dream. We believe that traditional American dream, the whole white picket fence and all of that, keeps you who broke. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck, stuck to their job, hate their job. Why would I want to have that dream? So we've decided a long time ago that was, I actually don't, I tell my clients the traditional taught American dream leads to debt and being stuck. And so why would I want to be a part of being stuck and trapped? But when we came back, we decided that was still our MO, but also the whole idea of overscheduling, overactivity, overconsumption, overindulgence, we just don't think it's helpful long term. So, but those were things that we believed before, but we just believed then deeper. And I would say that we just gave a little less crap about what people think about us, which means that you just can be your true, authentic self and let people like you or not like you. It's kindness to let people decide to not like you if that's what they're going to do, but you don't try to manipulate. So we're more grounded in who we are. Our kids are more grounded in who we are. So that was that. I will say a trip like that does cost money. Right. So I'm grateful that our finances were set up in a way that we could do that. But as someone that loves investing, I love investing in assets. I truly believe that our life is an asset. So the trip was an asset in our life, our memory. But I also like buying tangible assets. So I could not wait to get back and just buy all the tangible assets in terms of property and all that. But when we came, there was a lot of things that happened in 2024. Within a couple of weeks of getting back, unfortunately, we lost my mother-in-law suddenly. She was not sick. She was not unwell. My husband literally texted her at night because she was based in Nigeria, different time zone, and said, I'll call you in the morning. And we got a call waking us up that she died. She was not unwell.
Wow.
She just literally, she was unwell for 2 hours and died that quick. So we came back, got home 2 weeks later, that happened. So we had to travel back to Nigeria, which was unplanned. The kids were starting a new school. I decided that I did not want to be W-2 anymore, that I wanted to practice medicine per diem at a level that would allow me to do the other things that are just as important that I'm called to do in my life. So there were lots of transitions that was happening. There was also some other stuff about our real estate that was also coming up. So there was a lot that was thrown at us. Literally at a point, I told my husband that I almost had a visual of us being in a dome. We're covered, by God. And there was you looked up and you could just see so much literally poop on over the dome. There was so much that it would probably have crushed many people. But the deepening of our roots, our anchoring ourselves in who we are in faith, in our belief, all of that helped us so much. And one more thing, the new school that my kids started, they literally we got in and within 2 weeks they had two major overtly racist events. So there was a lot within a short amount of time that was thrown at us. But we did, it was you looked oh my goodness, that's a lot. But we're doing great. And the reason why we're doing great is because we're so anchored. We're so root deep. And so that, I think, honestly, most people would not have handled it as well as we did, and not a credit to us. I mean, we did play a part, but it's more of a credit to the fact that we were deeply anchored. So that was some of the changes that happened when we came back. With the money school, we still continue to impact people. But again, people are just getting a more true, a more authentic version of us
Uh-huh.
wherever we
Uh-huh.
are. So our kids are different. We are different.
Mhm.
And our goal is to continue to help other people also live their own best life.
Mhm.
And that my newest book, Power to Choose, came out literally earlier this month. And all of that is all a part of this. It's, The Power to Choose was a book, not a story, that came out of the idea that so many people are living a trapped life,
Right.
feeling trapped in their life. People are like, oh, and as a physician and a coach, I get to hear a lot of stories. I'm going to suffer through this trapped life so that I can make it to age 65, retire, and then be free. But many times things happen after 65. People get sick. Your relationships are different. You've lost relationships. The mission that you were supposed to accomplish in this world for 65 years left undone because you could not even come up for air.
Uh-huh.
And so what it is really is a guide. It's called the Woman Physician's Guide to Financial Liberation and Life on Your Terms, because I really give the guide to how people don't have to wait till 65 to live the life that they're meant to live. It's not about having a pile of money. It's about having money, but there's strategic ways, both internal and external tools that are required in order for you to really understand that you can live a life by choice now.
Uh-huh.
And in my opinion, that is not just about you. It's a gift to the world, because a world that does not get to experience you in your truest form, you with all the things, the impact that you're supposed to have made, I think it's a world that's like has a void in it
Right.
because you are not there
Yeah.
fully and truly.
Sometimes with my business, I'll play a game and it works against me. I'll tell you why, because
Mm.
I'll do this game where I say, what if that thing didn't exist? Right. So, like this group program, or, what if I didn't do sales calls? What if I didn't have a podcast? Like, what would happen to my business? Like, would I still have a business? Would I still be impacting women? Would I still be like all, whatever? Would I still have a family? Like anything. Right. And I just do it as a mental exercise, but it's also a little bit of as like a priority checklist. It's usually facilitated actually by my husband, who's trying to get me to have, instead of having 9 priorities, he's like, pick one. If you had to pick one, what's the one thing, right? And so usually it'll open up a conversation around these idea of what ifs. And when I say it backfires, a lot of times it results in either and I say backfire, it results in writing a new book or letting something go that's no longer serving me, right? And so both are kind of backfires. Like, oh, it results in a choice, right? And now I have to make this choice and I'm leaning into this choice. I'm curious from you if you have any sort of exercises like that. This is my favorite. It's a mental game, but it always comes out with something that was incredibly unexpected when I do it.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And I love it. It's almost a practice of detachment,
Yeah.
which I think is good. For me, I mean, I'm a Christian. My activities, and I know you have a diverse audience, but I'll share what I
Yes.
do from my perspective. But like,
Mm.
I believe strongly that the bigger the mountain you're supposed to climb, the deeper the equipping that
Uh-huh.
you have to have.
Uh-huh.
And that is things like rest, but it's also like in your faith. So for me, I know that my work is to impact women physicians, and literally the work that we do, which I'm grateful for, literally save lives, saves mental health. And anytime, healthcare is one of the core pillars of society. So when physicians are well, it's a great thing for more than just them. It's
Uh-huh.
like domino effect. So in order to do the work that I know that I'm here to do, I have to make sure that I take care of myself.
Uh-huh.
And part of taking care of myself is my mental health, my relational health, my financial health, but also my spiritual health. So I don't know if we talked about this. My husband and I, we host a call
Uh-huh.
every Mondays through Saturdays at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. We host a prayer call on Zoom. So we have people join from around the world. And if I don't do this, I probably will feel constipated
Uh-huh.
because that's how high maintenance I am. That's how
Mhm.
much I need,
Mhm.
right? If I don't do this, I get cloudy in my thoughts. But the reason why that's important is it gives me perspective where nothing like in my life, my priority is number one is God. Number two is my husband. Number three, my kids, my family, and everything else comes after that, right? But it has to, I cannot let, and as someone that talks about money and relationship with money, many times what we would do is we would trade a bad relationship for another bad
Mhm.
relationship. So to make sure that I stay grounded, that I don't worship money, that I don't think money is my source, because it really is not. It's a tool that we all get to use. I have to stay grounded in my faith, and that is by praying every day. And that really does help me reprioritize rest. And coaching is also important to me, and whether that's formal coaching or like hanging out with my friends that are coaches that have no problems calling out the stuff,
Mhm.
like Latifat, you're blah blah blah, but without all of those, I could not be well. And, regardless of what part people are and the political climate right now, there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that's going on in our world. There's inflation that's going on. There's tariffs and the impact on finances and lives and all of that. There's people, I've been getting fired, not just right now, but like for the past couple of years. Like if you turn on any news at all, there's so much tragedy and
Mhm.
sadness going on in the world. And so it is important that people are well. And in order to be well, it has to be bigger than you. And so for me, like my faith, especially as an empath,
Uh-huh.
I empathize. People find it funny, but like I have this memories of me as a young girl. I grew up in Nigeria, and there were times when there was stuff happening, like riots and stuff. And I would literally sit down and cry. I cry hard because I'm like, what would happen if something happened to one of my siblings?
Mhm.
Like that's me. I feel people's emotions, right? And so with the sadness going on in the world, if it was left to my own abilities, I literally would dig a hole in the ground and go hide in it with like hair pods and like something to cover my head so I can just hide from the
Mhm.
emotions of the world. So for me to be able to do the work that I do, I need to be anchored into to someone more powerful, more potent than me. And for me, that is God. And so without that, I would be cranky, crappy, crummy, unhelpful.
Mhm.
I would be an emotional mess. I'd probably be on a bunch of meds, and I would definitely not be as impactful as I am and
Yeah,
as I am going
yeah,
to be.
yeah. So when you have, a client, somebody in your group who is sort of in it, right? So they didn't have the year off or, or whatever, not it certainly isn't off. It's like, yeah, it's experiencing. But the year or they're not necessarily taking them care of themselves. They're a women physician who is almost burned out already. And then they experience something like a layoff or something that feels almost like too much to handle. How do you work with those women to kind of figure out what's next and to kind of find their way into the next path forward?
Absolutely. I usually love it if they're already in my orbit
Yeah,
before
that
that
helps,
happens. And
right?
I say that
Yeah.
because I see a huge difference between the outcome. And I'm glad you mentioned that because literally the book, The Power to Choose, is the recipe that I shared in there is exactly because of what you said right now. And I'll give you some examples of women that I've worked with. So, for example, one of a woman comes to mind who amazing physician, Native American. There aren't too many Native American doctors, well trained, professional, all of that stuff. I know her training. She's excellent. Went out on maternity leave. And while she was gone, she worked in a Native clinic. While she was gone, the staffing at the clinic changed. So the leadership changed. So now she came into a new leader that
Mhm.
didn't know her work ethic, professionalism, none of that. And essentially, after she came back, very soon after, they on imaging, they found something that needed to be taken care of. So this was a medical urgency that she needed to go take care of. And she asked for time to go take care of that.
Mhm.
And it was declined.
Mm.
It wasn't just declined, but she was actually fired. Unfortunately, she could not do anything legal to them
Mhm.
because it's a federal facility. But she was fired. Imagine a doctor, and doctors we're a different breed.
Uh-huh.
It is not rare for doctors to show up like when they're sick
Mhm.
at work because it takes a lot for us to call in sick. So to have a doctor walk out of her practice because she was requesting time off, and they went even further and lied to her patients and said she had a family emergency, even though they fired her. And they
Wow.
had security walk her off. This is a dedicated physician that normally doesn't miss work. They had security walk her off because they said, we don't know what your response will be. Imagine that craziness. So imagine that craziness. So, and this is someone that's also a primary breadwinner, married to a stay-home spouse and has kids. So imagine all the things that could have happened when now the income source. But fortunately for her, she had already done some of the things that I recommended. She had an emergency fund. She knew where her money was going. She had invested in the boring stock market. And so when this happened, I remember I told her one thing. I said, what would need to have happened in your life a year or 2 years from now that would make you see the person that fired you and you would go, thank you so much for letting me go. That was the best thing
Wow.
that ever happened to me. And so we give her time to grieve because you do want to grieve, but you don't want to grieve without hope. We want to grieve like every emotion, most emotions. I was going to say every, not every. Most emotions can actually be a tool, can be a flow. So your anger can be a flow to push you forward. It's not one that you want to use forever, but it can actually help you get some momentum. And so for her, that was one of the things that we said was, how can we help you make this into a fuel so that a year or 2 years from now, you will see this person and go, thank you, punk. Thank you. A bunch of words that I could use to describe you right now. And we did that. And literally within 16 months from that, she started her own micro practice. That was number one. She started working part-time at a place where we taught her how to negotiate, which I know that's like your love language. And she, quote unquote, was getting paid more than she had ever gotten paid ever in her life.
Yeah.
As a result of learning negotiation skills. She started investing in real estate, diversified her income source. She launched a tea line all within 16 months. All
Wow.
within 16 months.
Wow.
So the question becomes, what is different about those people? What are the things that has made people like this? And I have so many stories of women like this, but what are the key principles that make their story different? Because the same thing can happen to two different people and the outcome can be like really, really different. And I love the idea of like genie in a bottle, which is like, how can we dial down to the most important framework that can be reproducible? Because I've seen this at work in so many different people. And so part of it is, is it okay if I go into that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
For people?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So part of it is many times people think that I have to have financial independence. And the technical definition of financial independence is your yearly expense times 25. People think I have to have that amount in order to be free, which I want you to have that amount and you will have that amount. The other one is financial freedom, which financial freedom technical definition is that your expenses can be covered by your passive income. Meaning if you don't work, are your needs going to still be met by money that you've invested that has been growing for you? Have you planted enough trees and now the fruits can feed you when you don't have your primary work? That is important. But what I like to teach is financial liberation, because in a world where we have suicide, in a world where people's mental health, in a world where burnout, we don't have the luxury of like waiting to have all of that set up in case of an emergency. And what I don't want is for anybody to ever feel trapped or hopeless in their life, because hopelessness is the worst thing ever. Okay. So number one is you want to know where your money is going. And I share more details on the Power to Choose. It's on Amazon. I'm happy to share the link so that people can find it easily. But one of it is you have to know where your money is going right now, this moment. And before our talk, I actually did a teaching that is going to go on my YouTube and my podcast about a typical physician income and how it doesn't take a lot for people to meet paycheck to paycheck. And I know that your audience are not necessarily all physicians, but that applies to everybody, right? So it's a matter of like, where is your money going on right now? The mistake people make is they look at the categories and they're like, but I'm not even splurging. And my $150,000, my $200,000, my $500,000, my $1 million feels like it has legs and it's walking out of my bank account, right? And the reason why is most people look at the categories, but they're not actually looking at the numbers behind them. So of course you want to spend on childcare. Of course you want to spend on food. Of course transportation. Of course rent and mortgage. But how much are you actually spending on this stuff? And I'm not a fan of, actually don't even like traditional budgeting. I'm not a fan of like frugality or like being cheap. I don't celebrate the lowest month spent ever because I don't think those are actually well-minded things. But it's a matter of like, if you're someone that wants to prioritize not being trapped, always having the ability to choose, you have to look at your expenses relative to your own goals. And if your goal is freedom, then every expense is like, is this for my freedom or taken away from my freedom?
Right.
Right. So when you look at that, you start to look at childcare differently. You're like, if I have a good option of like $1,000 or another good option for 1,500, what delta, if that 500 can go towards our planting for our freedom, it becomes more exciting,
Right.
right? So it's being intentional about where your money is going in alignment with the things that matter to you. And if freedom does not matter to you, that's okay. But don't be surprised if you're trapped because you've decided that freedom is not important to you. So that's number one. The emergency funds, that is definitely important. And I go into details about how I define emergency funds, how many months people should have, quote unquote, should have. It's recommended and would be helpful. But also when it comes to how to calculate that emergency fund, usually people are like, oh, how much am I spending? And now they're like, okay, if they have not done the number one thing that I was talking about and they're spending all of their income, they assume that they need to have their income times 6. And that's not the case. You don't need to have your income times 6 to have your emergency fund. You want to have your expenses, and I define those in 3 different categories: your minimum viable expenses, your comfortable expenses, and they're like your bougie expenses, which, right, well, we have that step by step. What you need to be free and not tapped is your critical ones. That is what I define as a minimum viable expense: your shelter, your food, your leaned-in expenses. And when you have that, you realize that you don't have to be afraid to speak your mind at work. You don't have to be afraid to negotiate. You don't have to be afraid to like have conversations with your spouse because you're afraid of losing even their income if you guys disagree, which is a problem that I find for so many badass women physicians, and not just physicians, but like women in general, where we're in relationships, but we're afraid of money conversations. We're afraid of disagreement because we don't understand that money conversations is not actually what causes fights. It's avoiding money conversations earlier is what actually leads to fight and divorce. So
Yeah, because as I'm listening to you, I can see even the planning process, like even before you have all of this set up perfectly, right? That you just thinking about it, having the conversations ahead of time are part of the mental health that is going to allow you to have that freedom. And you can have that freedom even before all the numbers match and you have the technical freedom, right? And so I think that's what you mean too by like when somebody is in your world and in your group or whatever ahead of time, it's really, really helpful because they've already started these conversations or at least started thinking about it and what that would look like. So that's really incredible. Yeah.
And all of that works to improve and increase their trust in themselves.
Right.
Because if you think about it, the reason you knew for a fact that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. You'll be less afraid. So all of this, doing the work of looking at your numbers, your finances, investing in simple ways that work, understanding that there's something that I talk about in How to Choose called unfair advantage. I did not make that word up. There's actually a book called The Unfair Advantage that I recommend if your audience wants to check it out. And, it's a play on privilege, if I may, because privilege is a word that gets a lot of bad rap. And I don't think it should be that way. I think that we all have a privilege. The problem is when you have privilege plus scarcity, then you're hoarding it and you don't want anybody else to access what you have. But what would understand that we have unfair advantages, sometimes they're internal. There are things that you did not necessarily do, but it's just something that is placed you in a place of an advantage. It could be the color of your skin. It could be where you're positioned. It could be the kind of family you are. It could be who you are. For example, a lot of your audience are boss ladies. Their unfair advantage is that they're bosses. They figured out solutions to problems. Not everybody can say that. So there's already evidence that they are resourceful and can do stuff. So even that by itself, it's like no matter what comes up, like who you already are is an unfair advantage that you can now use. And again, I point out the part about scarcity with that because if maybe, for example, we are in Nigeria, my unfair advantage is I'm Nigerian. If I try to screw you over and not help you, that is the problem. But when I use my privilege for good to help other people get access to
Mhm.
things that they may not already have access to, that's a beautiful thing.
Mm.
So I think there's so much judgment when it comes to privilege that self-judgment, cultural judgment, and also scarcity that leads to even more judgment,
Uh-huh.
that we are missing out on an opportunity of celebrating unfair advantages and increased access for more people
Right,
through it.
right. You know, one of the harder things for some of my clients to articulate is I'll say something like, "Why do you think you personally were able to solve that problem?" Right? They'll tell me like this amazing thing that they did that the company's been trying to do for 5 years and then finally they figured it out in 6 months, right? And
Mhm.
so I'll be like, "Why do you think you were able to do that?" And they're like, "Well, I'm good, blah, blah, blah." Right? And I'm like, "No, there is something really special and unique and personal to you in particular, and really just even just understanding that for yourself." But it's like, just like you're talking about with the unfair advantage, it's like it feels so uncomfortable to go there, right? And so many people want to be I mean, a lot of us, like, as a value system, strive for equality and things like that. And so, like, we get driven by that. I'm not better than you. And because of the negative impacts of having privilege, right? And so then we don't even allow ourselves to see what makes us special and unique and badass and what got us to this place, right? And to really own that and share that and be willing to just share it as a point of pride because they earned it.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
You know, there is this guy, Rory Baden, who does a lot of things when it comes to brands and brand building. And I love his definition of brand because I've taken that definition and used it and amplified it and applied it and elaborated on it in other ways. And he talks about a brand as finding your things that makes you unique.
Mhm.
And this is a part that I like. And it calls it the digitization of your reputation.
Okay.
Really, that's what it calls it. And it's like finding what makes you unique and use it in the service of others. And I think
Mhm.
that's what
Oh,
people
I
are
love that.
missing. It's in the service of others. So for me, even when it comes to my skill set that I use for coaching women physicians, am I a great coach? Absolutely. Am I the only great coach? I don't believe so. But I know that we do work that has changed lives. But my goal is not to dim my shine because at the end of the day, it's not about me. Me coming on your podcast, it's not about me. And I don't, honestly, I don't need any more money. I like money because it's a tool. So the more I have, the more I can go through me and do the things that are important in the world, that are in line with the things that I value and impact that needs to be done. So yes, I want to have more money for that reason, but it's not like I need more food, which I'm grateful to God for, right? But the things that I have, the unique abilities, my ability to talk about money in a way that makes sense, in a way that is non-judgmental, non-shameful, in a way that makes everybody understand that you can actually have money and build wealth, you can lead life and all of that. My goal is I have to isolate that and make it stronger, more potent, so I can use it even more potently in service of others. To not do that is to not be all kind. To not do that is to not be generous. To not do that will be scarcity. So for your clients that are struggling with that, I think it's because we live in a very scarcity-based world where they've been told to like deem yourself. We live in a very prideful world. And pride really is different from like brand building and recognizing like what makes you unique. When you're prideful, it's about you. It's about self. And there's nothing wrong with that. You have to take care of yourself. But it's different when you take care of yourself as a vessel, as a conduit, as opposed to taking care of yourself as like the end of the line. I'm not the end of the line. And my job is to make sure that everything that I've been given, every skill, knowledge, resource, gifts, talent, does not end with me, but it goes through me. So I have to take care of myself so that I can do. That's why I talked earlier about the bigger the mountain you're called to be on, the deeper your roots have to be, the deeper your rest has to be. So is rest selfish? If you think you're the end of the line, yes. But if you resting means that you can speak with more articulation, you can think
Mhm.
differently,
Mhm.
and it doesn't even have to be like on a company
Mhm.
level. It means that you can be a different parent.
Yep.
it is selfish to not
Right,
rest, right?
right,
So
right.
we need to flip the switch a little bit,
Mhm.
the script, and understand and bring abundance into the picture by understanding that you've been well paid, you understanding your value brain, you understanding that, oh yeah, my brain is amazing. Do you know how many people you could mentor with
Yes,
that brain?
yes.
Instead of hiding the gold, I'll tell you a
Right.
story actually. It's a parable from the Bible that talks about three different people that were given talents. And, the numbers, I think it was like 10 talents, 5, and 1 or 2. The numbers is not as important, but there were variable amount of talent. And one of them that was given 10 talents actually went and invested the talent. And because they invested the talent, it got better. They got better. And when their boss came back, they were like, oh, you gave me 10 and I made 10 more. And the boss was like, great, I will give you more
Oh,
because good, you did a great job of investing that. And then the one that was given 5 talents, the same thing was like, you gave me 5 and I invested the 5. And how do you invest 5? You find something to let it grow in. And the boss was like, great, good job. And the one that was given 1 talent, I was like, well, I knew you were a hard boss and I did not want to lose this talent. So I
mhm,
went to go hide it in the
uh-huh.
ground so that it now made nothing. And the principle behind it is a talent that he had was not taken away from him or her, this person. Right. And so the idea behind that is the gifts that you've been given, like the things you're doing at work that I cannot do is an unfair advantage. That's a talent you've been given. But when we take it and we think we're being humble, but what you actually are being is you're being non-prudent, you're not being a good investor, and you're not isolating and developing that gift so that you cannot use it to the benefit of even more
Right,
people.
right,
That is not how it's supposed to work. So it is selfish, unkind, and maybe ignorant for us to do that because
right,
that's not
right.
actually what you want. You want to be
Yeah,
giving, you want to be kind, you want to be generous and all of that. And the way you do that is by saying, yes, I am the expert here at
yeah.
coding. I'm the expert here
And you
at
grow
doing
it.
this. And you take that,
Ah,
you own it,
beautiful.
and
Yes,
you grow it.
I love
And it's
it.
like, yes, boss, that is how
Wow.
you give value.
Mhm.
That is how you become unmessable with because they now know. And even if they don't value you, they're like, you know what, whatever, you can take your goodness and take it somewhere else. But you've isolated your goodness. That's what it's about.
Oh, so good. Thank you, Dr. Latifat, so much for being here today. This is so incredible. How do people find you and follow you and learn more?
Absolutely. The easiest way is if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on a podcast right now, you can just go find us where Money Fit MD. I have episodes every week. We have over 200 episodes now, which is kind of crazy to me, about over 250 episodes well rated. And everything we do is really to empower, educate, and help people, specifically women physicians, be well. But the knowledge that I share can be applied to everyone in every field. So you can definitely learn from it. And if you want to go on Amazon, our book, we have 2 bestsellers now, Done with Broke, which really gives you like a practical step-by-step guide to like learning money, knowing money, and money management, because everybody should know money management. We're
Mhm.
bosses. We spend our time working. If you don't learn how to manage the money you're earning, it's literally like not eating, like leaving the main course and not
Mhm.
enjoying it. Because when you
Mhm.
manage your money, it's part of like rewarding yourself for the work that you've done.
Yeah.
And our second one is called The Power to Choose, also on Amazon, also a bestseller. And the feedback that I've been hearing has been amazing. And I really, really believe that it will help your audience so
Yeah,
deeply.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure reconnecting and just such a great conversation. And I'm absorbing and taking in your energy for my weekend and next week and so on and so on. So thank you for sharing your gifts. And I'm so appreciative and grateful for you.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. And thank you for the work you do. You know how much I love, love, love your work. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for helping women do the work and get paid well and
Mhm.
own their badassery, right? It's
Yeah.
such a loss of the world when we don't see what we
Yeah.
are. So
Yeah.
thank you for helping me and see that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Women Changing Leadership with Stacy Mayer. If you enjoyed this episode, you are absolutely going to love and benefit from the work that we're doing inside of the Women's Leadership Accelerator. This month-to-month membership program is unlike anything else in the market. We are single-handedly flipping the unemployment rates on their head. It is the only place on the internet where you can actually get yourself not only a job offer, but one that has a higher salary, a higher title, and more recognition and influence than you ever could have imagined in your career. Inside the Women's Leadership Accelerator, we are getting women promoted. We are getting them multiple higher level job offers. And I want that to happen for you. Join us in this one-of-a-kind program. You're going to get coaching directly from me, my executive mentors who are also hiring managers who are doing the work, who have worked with me personally for the past 3 to 5 years. We are here inside of this accelerator program to work with you personally to begin to elevate your leadership to that next level. This is exactly what you have been looking for, and I am here to deliver it to you. Best thing, it's month to month. So you can come in, join us, get access to all of my training materials, my weekly live interactive calls, and you can begin to bring your friends into this community. It is the most corporate badass community on the market. I can't wait to see you in there. Go to authenticallypowerfulwomen.com. We are changing the face of the leadership table, one promotion at a time. I can't wait to see you there.